The story of the day and the base take on it is obviously a second assassination attempt against President Trump in almost 2 months' time. What times are we living in? The left had the audacity to blame President Trump for being the victim of an attempted murder. So let's back up here. On September 1st of 2024, this is what Kamala Harris posted on X. She posted this foreboding picture of President Trump, trying to make him look like this evil authoritarian can't you just hear that foreboding music and the stomp, stomp, stomp of a monster coming to get you? Donald Trump vows to be a dictator on day one, she posted. And her caption, "We won't let him." 14 days later, Ryan Routh tried to assassinate Donald J. Trump. Do you think that this is not correlated? Do you think that the rhetoric from the left calling Trump Hitler, calling him an authoritarian, calling him a dictator, calling him evil, telling women that he's trying to take over their bodies, telling LGBTQIA identifying people that he's trying to marginalize them and genocide them, that his policies will kill them? Do you think that this is not causing even rational people, and I say rational for a very specific reason, even rational people, to believe that their only course of action isn't our political process, it isn't our democracy, but the only political resource is to, quote, be a hero and kill Trump? Because here's the thing. This lone shooter that we've seen now twice trying to target President Trump, you can argue that you'd have to have some kind of disturbed mental state to murder some other people. But there's also a very big difference between someone who is in a mostly rational state of mind versus someone who is babbling to themselves, hearing voices, a schizophrenic who thinks that he's on a mission from God to take a child bride and kill someone else. There's a very big difference between those two types of people. And everything we know so far about Ryan Routh, he doesn't seem like a babbling schizophrenic hearing voices telling him to kill Donald Trump. He seems like an individual who fell for the rhetoric of the mainstream media, calling Trump Hitler, feeling like he would be doing a service to humanity to take Trump out. Because what has the left done consistently? And when I say the left, I mean both the politicians and their cohorts in the mainstream media. They have spent the last 8 years dehumanizing Donald Trump. He's not a person to them. So when an assassin, a would-be assassin, attempts to fire a bullet into the head of Donald Trump twice, this assassin, you could argue, is acting rationally because he doesn't think that he's killing a human being. He thinks that he is vanquishing Voldemort. This was a point that Joel Berry made on X, and he's exactly right. Kamala Harris tweeted that on September 1st, but this was her response to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. We're going to bring this up on the screen. This was her response. She said, "I've been briefed on reports of gunshots fired near former President Trump and his property in Florida, and I'm glad he's safe. Violence has no place in America." That's it. That's your statement. When your rhetoric has led to 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump, you just say violence has no place in America, except, of course, the violence that she encouraged by telling people to bail out violent criminals in Minneapolis during the Black Lives Matter riots of 2020. Kamala Harris is a dangerous individual. Lester Holt blamed Donald Trump specifically. When I'm talking about lowering the temperature of the political rhetoric, listen to what Lester Holt said after President Trump was almost shot.
Today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio. This weekend, there were new bomb threats in that town.
Let me tell you, what Lester Holt said is shorthand for Donald Trump really deserved to be shot, and I'm not unhappy about it. He's victim blaming because Donald Trump pointed out the reality that Haitian migrants are barbecuing cats in Springfield, Ohio, which, by the way, we're going to show you the video of later because we now have proof that this is happening. As the left gaslights us and tells us it's not only not happening, you're a racist for even questioning it. We have video that shows the cats being barbecued. We'll show you that in a little while. Lester Holt is blaming Donald Trump as if he deserves this, because he is vocalizing the pain the American people feel because of the open border policies of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Hakeem Jeffries, after the assassination attempt yesterday, posted this on X. This is the Democrat leader in the United States Congress. Extreme MAGA Republicans, he tweeted, are the party of a national abortion ban and Trump's Project 2025. We must stop them. Extreme MAGA Republicans are coming to get you, is the shorthand of his tweet. Democrats know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what's going to happen as a result of this type of lying. It's happened twice. And the first time they just dismissed it from the news cycle. You remember last week during that presidential debate, Donald Trump brought up the attempted assassination one time. And what happened? The ABC moderator cut him off, interrupted him as he was talking about an attempted assassination that happened 6 weeks prior to that. We're still talking about the JFK assassination, 70 years later? But 6 weeks after Donald Trump was the victim of an attempted assassination, bullet hit his ear, just could have gone right through his brain, except that he happened to turn his head, according to ABC. We should just move on to another topic here. And then, of course, we have a congresswoman, believe it or not. You might not have heard of her. She's not a very prominent congresswoman. This is what a congresswoman said about MAGA Republicans and our threat to democracy. Take a look at this.
I talk about the fact that when we swore in finally in January, that we swore to defend against those that are coming against us, whether they are domestic or international. And right now, I feel like MAGA in general, they are threats to us domestically. And we see it time and time again.
Oh, MAGA's threats to us domestically. This is how they unperson people. This is how they dehumanize people. This is how they prepare you for the reality of what they want. They want Donald Trump dead. Period. Period. And by the way, this was a Democrat shooter. All of his political donations, Ryan Routh's political donations, went to Democrats. I know there's a lot of people on X, a lot of leftists on X who are trying to gaslight us, being like, we don't really know what his political views were. Yes, we do. He had a Kamala Harris bumper sticker on the truck outside of his home. Which brings me to my point. I hate to have to say this, but you are going to have to convince me that Ryan Routh is not a Fed asset. This feels like JFK all over again. Even the Martin County sheriff asked if this shooter was part of some conspiracy because there are so many red flags. We're going to go through those red flags in just a second, but take a look at this.
I think what we're finding out is not from this area, which of course raises the bigger question is, how does a guy from not here get all the way to Trump International, realize that the president, former president of the United States, is golfing and is able to get a rifle in that vicinity? I think that's the question the FBI, the Secret Service are laser focused on today. Is this guy part of a conspiracy? Is he a lone gunman? If he's a lone gunman, President Trump is that much safer because we have him. But if he's part of a conspiracy, then this whole thing really takes on a very ominous tone.
You know, the one thing I disagree with in that statement is like, those are the questions. How did a lone gunman know where President Trump was going to be on the fifth hole of his golf course at that specific time of day with an AK-47? How did he know if he's a lone gunman? He said the FBI is zeroed in on getting answers to this question. I call foul. Somehow I doubt that the FBI is as interested in the answer to that question as you are and as I am. You're going to have to convince me that this guy is not a Fed asset, because if you look at the background of this guy, not only is he a Democrat who very clearly fell for the rhetoric, the Hitler rhetoric of the Democrat Party in the mainstream media, which was intended to create situations like this, create people who are willing to murder President Donald J. Trump. Not only did he fit that profile perfectly, he also has a really sketchy, weird foreign profile. In 2002, he was caught with a weapon of mass destruction, arrested for that. A weapon of mass destruction, and was given probation for that. What? Imagine having a weapon of mass destruction and just getting probation. Not even a terrorism charge here? So the folks outside of the Capitol on January 6th had terrorism enhancements for going through a gate that was supposed to be an otherwise secure area at the Capitol, but no violence, no vandalism, a terrorism enhancement. And yet the guy with weapons of mass destruction just got probation. Oh yeah, he's a Fed. For sure, he's a Fed. Or at least someone the Feds knew about. You will not be able to convince me that the FBI, the CIA and the State Department did not have any idea who this guy was when he had a profile in the New York Times talking about what he did. He recruited fighters from all over the world to come and fight for Ukraine. He spent 6-8 months in Ukraine. It doesn't sound like he was fighting himself. It sounds like he was trying to get Afghan soldiers to come to Ukraine to fight on behalf of the Ukrainians, to fight on behalf of Zelensky. This is a really sketchy thing. In fact, even Ukraine officials didn't want the Afghan soldiers to come to Ukraine. This is Ryan Routh on video himself talking about meeting with the Ukraine Defense Ministry every week. Take a look at this.
The problem? Officials in Kyiv simply aren't interested in recruiting them.
Ukraine is reluctant to be cooperative.
That's Ryan Routh, a U.S. citizen who set up the International Volunteer Center in Ukraine to help connect foreigners to Ukrainian military units.
Now I'm talking to over 100 soldiers every day, and pretty much everybody, all of my contacts in Ukraine, they were adamant and pretty much yelled at me every time that I suggested that we bring in Afghan.
You telling me that the FBI didn't know about this guy? The CIA didn't know about this guy? The State Department didn't know about this guy? If so, they're completely useless, which I don't believe. I would laugh if you told me they had no idea who this guy was. Of course they did. They snoop on conservative media personalities on YouTube, and you're telling me that they don't have eyes on an American citizen that's trying to recruit Afghan soldiers through Pakistan and Iran? Which also brings me to a really sketchy thing. This AK-47. He got charged this morning, Ryan Routh did, and the charges are almost ridiculous. He was charged for possessing an illegal weapon because he's a convicted felon, for possessing a weapon that has a filed off serial number. Like, no terrorism charges here, no attempted murder charges here. We're just going to try to get him on some rinky dinky, oh, you have a weapon. But it is awfully strange that he has this no-name AK-47, the same kind that Iran traffics in. And we know that Iran wants to kill Donald Trump because Donald Trump killed Soleimani. Just a little weird. It brings to mind this idea that this guy's in Ukraine. He's already working with Afghan soldiers. He's already trying to work through Pakistan and Iran. Can't you just picture him being approached by just someone, maybe not someone who's part of U.S. intel, but someone who's connected to U.S. intel and maybe Iran, and saying, listen, that Trump, Hitler, man, an authoritarian, a dictator, a threat to our democracy, and you had the audacity to vote for him. This is your fault. You know what you owe your country? You owe your country to take him out. You'd be a hero, man. You'd go down in history. You'd go down in history as saving your country. This is the kind of fame, this is kind of the legacy you want. And so this guy comes back to the United States, just happens to get his hand on a weapon, maybe from a friend, we don't know yet, goes outside of Trump International Golf Course with a GoPro because he wants to record this. He wants his legacy. Wants to record this, and he sits around and he waits for 12 hours for Donald Trump to show up on the golf course. But how does he know Donald Trump's going to be there? If this golf course, and this is not a public event, and it's not on Trump's public schedule, how did he know that Donald Trump was going to play there? How did he know which hole he was going to be on? Where did he get this kind of intel? It doesn't sound like a lone shooter to me. And let me tell you, this guy is alive. He could give us answers to every single one of these questions if the FBI had the interest to ask him, if the CIA had the interest to know, if the State Department were honest, we'd get answers to all of these things. What would you give to look at the call log on this man's phone? Who's he been talking to? Who's he communicated with in Washington, D.C.? Who does he text? Who's he talked to online? What kind of chat rooms does he frequent? Who visits him? Who has he visited? What other countries has he traveled to lately? You know, these people always text or call or leave a note for someone before they commit this kind of heinous act. Think about every shooter that you can possibly think of. Beforehand, they tell someone. Who did he tell? Who knew about this? Who could have stopped this? Who encouraged this? This smacks of either a Fed asset or something the Fed allowed to happen. Even a guest on CNN, by the way, said that this happened as a result of the Democrats' rhetoric calling Trump Hitler. Take a look at this. This is on CNN.
What does the fact that he wanted to survive say to you?
It says that he's not, he's not suicidal, apparently. He wasn't going to take his own life if he was almost being captured. Clearly, we saw that he was captured without that. And it tells me that he's probably much more politically motivated. The last shooter in Pennsylvania, I don't want to say his name because I don't want to promote him in any way, but he was clearly a guy that was looking for the notoriety of taking that shot. I would think we're going to find that this guy's extremely politically motivated and that he probably was spurred on by much of the political diatribes that are going on these days, talking about Trump, equating him to Hitler and things like that. So I don't think this is the last we'll see of crazies out there trying to do this.
Of course not, because it hasn't been successful either time. You know, Don Jr. had a post on X earlier today that said, I've had to have 5 conversations today with each of my 5 young children, explaining to them that their grandfather, the radical leftists, tried to shoot their grandfather again. And Donald Trump Jr. said, nobody should ever have to have this conversation, let alone 2 different times. The Democrats want Donald Trump dead. The question is, will Donald Trump survive this? I don't know what kind of security. I mean, it's the contrast between the Democrats and even some Republicans actually sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, and at the same time, Biden saying, oh yeah, the Secret Service was short-staffed. We got to get some more resources on that to give Donald Trump security. And I think it was the sheriff yesterday, right after this happened, said, you know, because he's not a sitting president, Donald Trump doesn't have a full perimeter security from the Secret Service. You kidding me? 2 months after an attempted assassination, they can't give full perimeter security to President Trump. Take some of that money that you're giving to the freak hoax Zelensky and use it to protect Donald Trump. And if you don't, then we know very clearly what is already obvious, but you proving to us yet again. You want Donald Trump dead. They are grooming. The Democrat Party, with their rhetoric, is grooming shooters to try to take out Donald Trump.